It is 7 o'clock. We will call the meeting to order. As always, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And before we move on, I just want to make one note for anyone watching. It is National Pizza Day, so feel free to call our local Farmington and Unionville pizza places and patronize them and enjoy a slice while we're having our meeting. With that, we are going to begin with presentations and recognitions. And I am very fortunate to be reading our first proclamation this evening for Lee Pappas. It is her 100th birthday coming up just before our next meeting. So our proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Lee Lemonia Zafranis Pappas was born in Thompsonville, Connecticut on February 22nd, 1921, and lived most of her life in Waterford, Connecticut, where she raised 3 daughters, Helen Schlicht, Mercedes Shukaki, and Georgia Pappas, before moving to Middlewoods of Farmington in February of 2013, where she enjoys knitting, crocheting, gardening, and jigsaw puzzles. Whereas Lee Pappas graduated Buckley High School in Hartford in 1939, and served in the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps in the United States Army from 1942 to 1945, earning the Army Commendation Ribbon, the World War II Victory Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, and the American Service Medal. Lee went on to own and operate Niantic Pizza in Niantic before working at the deli at Stop and Shop for 25 years until she retired at the age of 85. Whereas Lee Pappas was a dedicated parishioner at the St. Sophia Greek Orthodox Church in New London, where she received the Archbishop Lukovos Distinguished Service Award. She later became a parishioner at St. George's Greek Orthodox Church in Hartford, where she still attends. Whereas, as a resident of Farmington for 8 years, Lee Pappas has shown the true spirit of Farmington with her volunteerism. Lee was presented with a volunteer award from Quilts That Care and has also received the volunteer award for several years in a row from Middlewoods of Farmington for her help throughout the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Farmington Town Council hereby proclaims February 22nd, 2021 as Lee Pappas Day in the town of Farmington, and we call upon our fellow residents to pay tribute to this valued member of our community. Dated this 9th day of February, 2021 at Farmington, Connecticut, CJ Thomas, Chair, Farmington Town Council. And I will now turn it over to Edward Gianaros to give an official Greek happy birthday.
Absolutely. So Lee, harumena genethlia ke chronia pola. So what I said there in Greek is happy birthday and many years to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Edward. And what an incredible role model you are, Lee. We're honored to be honoring you on this day. Thank you. That being said, we will move on to our state legislators. Let's see, I'm just looking through the rolls here. There we go. Tammy Exum, I see. Mike D'Amico, I see. Derek Slapp, I see. Rick Lopes.
Senator Lopes told me he's not going to be able to attend. He sends his regrets. He is out plowing snow right as we speak, so helping to keep the streets safe.
Very nice. Okay, I appreciate that. Well, I thought we'd start out and just go across the desk here and ask you some questions, if that's okay with you all, and then give you some time at the end to kind of add anything we might have missed in our questions. Does that sound reasonable? Okay, why don't we start? Peter, you're in the upper left corner. I'm going to start off with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight, Derek, Mike, Tammy. One thing I woke up to this morning in the Hartford Courant was a headline of regionalization of school systems for towns like Farmington, and the penalty could potentially be a decrease in our funding, state funding for the reimbursement for new schools. So I'm sure I would like to hear what you guys think about this and what you're going to do to not let this happen to Farmington.
So Peter, this is Derek, and I'm on the education committee. So I'm going to maybe take the liberty, if it's okay with my colleagues, to jump in, and they can, opine on it, of course, if they want. Last year or 2 years ago, I mean, when we've been talking about this, I've been consistent in saying that I think when it comes to, schools and regionalization, that it should not be forced, that it should be something that's voluntary, and that, we should use the carrot and not the stick. And, I'm still in that same place. So I think that this is the time of year when there's, it's very early in session. The governor has not, as you know, has not proposed his budget yet. That happens tomorrow. So there's a lot of ideas out there. There's ideas there's everything from legalizing or something like this about crystal meth. I mean, there's everything that you could almost possibly imagine, ideas that are proposed. I'm not comparing regionalization to that, but I'm just saying that this is what happens at the beginning of session. There's a lot of ideas that are, thrown out there, and, and so we'll have a public hearing on it. And, it's an effort by the Senate president, I think, to, look for savings, but we're going to, and I can't speak obviously for the delegation, but we did all attend the Board of Education, Farmington Board of Education meeting about a month ago, and we said that we were going to do whatever we could to to fight for reimbursement, for the high school, for whenever that project kind of comes online, that we're going to make sure that Farmington is, gets fair funding. And, I stand by that. And so we're going to, I think as a delegation, do our best to, so, nothing's changed in my mind. And I think that we'll have a conversation about it like we do every year. But ultimately, I think towns need to be part of the process, collaborative, and, this is not the way to go about it. So that's my take on it, and very consistent with how I've been over the last few years since I've had the honor of representing part of Farmington.
Okay, well, thanks, Derek. It's just we're on the cusp here. I don't think by the time maybe something like this passes, or potentially, or ever gets out there, Farmington will hopefully be well beyond this in the process. But it's just I don't think it's quite frankly fair for well-run towns who do right, and then the Senate president throws this stuff out there, and when it's the Senate president making these kind of suggestions, they could possibly get some traction because he yields a lot of power. So
he does yield a lot of power, but I would say, Peter, it has nothing to do with how well a town is run. It's all about, so like I said in the beginning, I don't support the penalization of, what the bill would do, right? But it has nothing to do with how well a town is run. It has to do with,
I get that. I'm just throwing that out there. And yeah, I'd like to hear from Mike and Tammy on this, and then that's all I have. And Joe can take up the next question.
Sure. So thanks, Peter, and thanks, Senator Slapp. So Peter, I agree with everything that Senator Slapp, Derek, just had to say, and I will just reiterate, as I'm sure you're aware, only about 10% of the bills that are introduced every legislative session actually make it across the finish line. And even, it might even be less than 10%. So I'm going to assume that this goes into the 90% category of the ones that aren't going to make it across the finish line. So many times legislative leaders introduce an idea and it's just exactly that. It's an idea. And I think in this case, I don't want to speak for Senator Looney, who introduced this, but I suspect what he's trying to do is to introduce a conversation about how towns can share services in order to do things more efficiently and save money. So Farmington is a good example. I mean, Farmington for years has shared, different services, dispatch services, and worked with some of the other surrounding towns, in purchasing equipment and supplies and so forth. So I think the idea is to make towns realize that you can't have 169 of everything in Connecticut. And that's what we have. We have 169 towns. Everybody wants to have their own high school, their own police force, their own dump trucks, their own this, their own that. And that's great, except it's a really costly way to do business. And if this prompts a discussion about how you can do things more cheaply and more efficiently, then it will have done its job. But the idea that, that this thing will ever, come to fruition, I'm really, doubtful about that. So I maybe I'll just leave it at that, but it was a good question. Thank you.
And just to jump in, I really can't add a lot. I really agree with what both Derek and Mike shared as far as thinking, this is probably a concept, something to really have us to think about really how we can be more efficient. And there are opportunities for shared services that if they are there, take advantage of that for efficiency. But certainly I think that towns will have a voice in this. This probably is something that is a good discussion, but I can't imagine. I remember when the regionalization discussion was really something that was kind of feared and discussed about 2 years ago. And I think it really is about efficiencies. That was a conversation, and I think it will continue to be a conversation, and it should be. It's a robust conversation so that we can find ways that, to do things that we may not have before. But I don't believe this will be something that moves forward this session.
Just one follow-up then on this. I don't have a problem with regionalization sometimes for buying large purchases, large pieces of equipment, that kind of stuff. I just don't like the aspect of how it's going to be, how it would penalize the town for just exactly it, the penalization. That's what kind of gets my goat on this whole thing, is that if you don't participate in regionalization, if you go to, or if a town wants to build a new school, you're only going to get X amount of dollars, and another community who's in it gets the full funding. So it's not about. I agree with regionalization, but I don't like the penalty aspect of it. So that's it.
Thank you.
All right, Peter, thank you. And I'm just going to add a little follow-up to that because, as I think you all know, we're looking to potentially build a new high school in town, and we're pretty much at that 20% level as far as what we could possibly get. One of the things I know you all had discussions with the Board of Education as far as the Hartford Choice Program, which I think goes under a different name now, which is about 3% of our student body. So we're already reaching out to other communities within the school system. And I'm wondering whether there's anything within the funding program from the state that can actually help us in our funding for the high school somewhat above that 20% mark.
CJ, I just want to make sure I understand the question. You're saying, is there some existing kind of mechanism that we can leverage, something to increase reimbursement rate beyond 20%?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know of any. I think that to be just completely honest, the first thing we're going to be doing is playing defense on on the bill that Peter just very appropriately asked about. So, but we will do whatever we can, and we'll certainly, I think, look to work collaboratively with you all to get the best kind of arguments, to get the best, all the facts on our side, and we'll go together. I think this is going to be a collaborative process here with you all, with the Board of Ed, with town residents to really make sure that we can maximize reimbursement for the town of Farmington. So I think we're at the beginning of that process, and I do look forward to a great relationship with all of you and to be able to move forward on that.
Appreciate that. Anything to add from Mike or Tammy? Just don't feel required to. Just if there's anything else. Any other
No, I don't want to belabor this. I agree with Derek, but and again, I'm going out on a limb here, but I have a recollection that and Derek can probably correct me on this. If a school district, my understanding is, at one time, if a school district offered different services that weren't available anywhere else, that might, enable them to get extra funding. So I don't know if and Farmington can be proud of the fact, I think we have the highest percentage, or among the highest percentage of open choice students, coming from Hartford and into our school system. So I don't know if the level of open choice students entitles us to any extra money, but it's worth asking the question. So, I will ask the question. Again, I don't know if my colleagues can shed any light on that, but I have this idea that if you offer different services that nobody else is offering in the region, I think it might entitle you to something extra.
Okay. Certainly something to look into. Thanks.
It is, and I will look into that. And I'm glad you raised it, CJ.
Well, with a ticket that big for the high school, all the help we can get to get us across that goal line to get a new building here, because anyone who's been in that building, and I think all of us have been, knows it's in desperate need right now. Okay, Ed, I'm going to drop straight down to you now.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, CJ. So first of all, thank you to the whole state delegation, Tammy, Mike, Derek. Thank you for coming and showing your interest, as you always do, in Farmington. My question is in regard to pilot money. So I was reading an article in the Hartford Business Journal recently that talked about some renewed interest in potentially increasing the amount of pilot money to municipalities that have state-owned property that are eligible for that pilot money. And I know also on our agenda, we're going to be talking about a correspondence that was signed by our town manager, Kathy Blonsky, as well as other town managers and mayors of a variety of cities and towns across the state regarding pilot money and making sure that we get our fair share of pilot money. So I was wondering, do you have any information on is that something that the state legislature is looking to tackle this year, or are there any discussions or any information that you can provide that kind of you've heard around that topic?
I don't know if Derek may have more information from the Senate, but I do know that Senator Looney did propose to fund pilot and implement a tiered-based system for the program. But I am not sure of how far along that proposal has gone. Are you, Derek, hearing more about it on the Senate side?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. There are some proposals to create new tiers of pilot for, municipalities who either have a large percentage of their grand list as tax exempt, who are let's just say poorer communities. I think that the only way that has a chance of advancing, I mean, and I hate to kind of make bold predictions here, but I'm sure you all hold my feet to the fire if I'm wrong, is that it would have to include new money. It would only, we're talking about being new money. In other words, taking pilot from towns, from your existing pilot and sending that to other communities, I don't think, I think it's a non-starter. And that's how it's been described to me as, you know, we have there's generally a feeling that, you know, we need thriving suburbs. And in most cases, we do have that in Connecticut. We also need thriving urban centers to attract jobs and businesses and keep our young folks, et cetera. And so we all kind of lament the mill rates that are in the 70s in some cases, you know, in our urban centers. And we're looking for ways for not only to decrease those, but to address issues of equity, et cetera. So I think that's the genesis for some of these policy ideas. But again, I don't think we're going to be looking at anything that's going to be passing where we're going to be taking pilot from a town like Farmington and giving it to another. There are some, and then I'll stop and let my colleagues jump in. I will say that there are some initiatives where we're looking at, like sports gaming. There's a bill, as many of you know, that would legalize sports gaming, and they would run that revenue through the Pequot formula for pilot. And so we're talking about increases based on the Pequot formula. And I did see a draft runs of that I'm happy to share with you all in terms of what that would mean for Farmington, but it would mean an increase. And the good news, I think we're heading into this budget address tomorrow, where we're not looking at proposed cuts to ECS. We're not looking at a teacher pension, plan, right, to dump that on towns. We're looking at one of the best rainy day funds, strongest in state history, but one of the best percentage-wise in the country. So I think we're in really much better financial shape as a state than certainly we've been in many, many years. So I think that's good news, and that'll help certainly Farmington.
Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, Derek, actually, if you could share that draft initiative with us knowing obviously that it's a draft, that'd be great. Just to see that and see what's being thought of right now. Thank you.
I'd be happy to. And that's again a dividing up of the revenue. Using the formula for the Pequot, which is based on pilot. So you see certain towns, like with prisons as an example, getting more than other towns, but that is only if the sports gaming passes, which the governor needs to reach an agreement with the tribes, and then we need to pass the bill as well. It does have a lot of co-sponsors on it, so I don't know how.
Right, so it's contingent on that sports gaming. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, Joe, how about we go to you next?
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for attending the meeting. I appreciate it, all your time that you guys do serve. My two questions, one on juvenile crime. As you see, we're having a huge explosion in crime in Farmington, West Hartford, all the surrounding towns. And I know we've written a letter to you guys, and I know other surrounding towns have written a letter. Anything on the table to try to correct what's going on, to try to stop the recidivism of the crimes occurring?
Well, I can start. I can jump in. I understand that there's a Senate bill that has been proposed. It's called the Senate Bill 534, an act concerning auto thefts by juvenile offenders. And there will be a public hearing to get feedback and ideas. But the idea is that for serious juveniles, which is a lower percentage of the amount, there are a lot of break-ins, as you're saying, but the ones that are repeat offenders is really who this is getting at. And what it would allow is for them to be prosecuted at that time as an adult. But as soon as they get 21, turn age 21, they will seal and have not gotten into any additional trouble. The records will be sealed, barring any other felonies, and it's seen as a deterrent. So this is one concept that is going to be discussed, because we do recognize it is a problem, and there are many reasons for it, but we're really trying to look at those serious offenders. And so that's my understanding. That's the bill that I'm most familiar with. But it is something that we do need input and ideas around as well. And so I think it'd be really important to know when that comes up, if it comes up for a hearing, to be able to kind of share your ideas and to use your voice for that, and for the public to do so as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Joe, that in addition to that Senate bill that Tammy just talked about, there are two bills in the House that I'm aware of, and there may be more, but there are at least two bills in the House that are looking at the same issue. What, you know, how the towns and the state can work together to determine what's responsible for this increase in crime, and what we can do about it, and how we can work together to do something about it. So, you know, I suspect they're going to find that a big part of it is COVID, and the anxiety and the mental health, you know, implications of kids, you know, having their lives upended, you know, for the better part of a year now, you know, soon to be more than a year, you know. So I think that's a big part of it. So there are a lot of aspects to this. And you know, we heard loud and clear. Every legislator has I don't want to say every legislator, but many legislators have gotten, you know, inquiries about this, you know, from their respective towns, and you know, it's something that we're definitely going to be looking at legislatively this year. So that's it for me.
Yeah, Joe, if I could jump in, you know, I would say that in 2019, we, you know, we passed a bipartisan bill that was focused on this very issue. And I mean, if you consider when it took effect, and then we had COVID, I mean, it is early. You know, Mike is right that we've seen, I believe, you know, in terms of people not being in school too, like seeing things related to the pandemic that have made it more challenging. But I'm pleased that we were able to tackle this on a bipartisan level, or at least begin to start to address it in 2019. That bill was a recognition that what the state was doing, you know, and the existing laws weren't sufficient, and that some of it's counterintuitive, because I mean, I don't want to speak for, you know, Mike and Tammy, but sometimes we get emails and it's like, throw the book at these juveniles, you know, and oftentimes, you know, treating a 15, 16-year-old, throwing him or her in prison or whatever, actually does not reduce the likelihood that they're going to recidivate, and that it actually only increases it. So one of the things that, again, this bipartisan bill did in 2019 was give was more support and more discretion for judges, and to be able to say, you know what, this is a child where it's not a violent crime, and we're going to have some support services, or we're going to divert this juvenile, you know, for services that we think are actually going to reduce the chances that, you know, this individual is going to just do it over and over again. So I do think that's a path that's worth pursuing. Obviously, to Tammy's point, when there are real violent crimes, of course, you know, that's a different category. But I did participate in a Greater Hartford forum on this just a couple months ago. We brought everybody together, and to Mike's point, I do think that there's, you know, real strong support on both sides of the aisle to tackle it. One of the things, though, I would just leave you with this, that did come up, and it's like a large portion of the auto thefts, which is what we're talking about, is because of people not locking their car doors or leaving their fobs in the car. So that doesn't mean we don't need to do things at the state level, but I would just urge people that to remember to lock their car doors, not leave their fobs in it. And overall violent crime in the state, some of you may have just have heard that Northern Correctional Facility is being closed because of violent crime is down so significantly in the state. So in the larger context, the state is doing pretty well in terms of violent crime. But, you know, to your point, there's more work to be done.
And
Yeah.
I would just want to, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to thank you, Tammy. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I understand that. I did the job for 26 years. I understand that, you know, kids do stupid things, but I do believe that, you know, if you do something, you have to have some type of punishment. Something has to be done. And I feel like it's gone to the point that, hey, I have a clean record. I'm going to keep doing this. Nothing's going to come back on me, and I'm going to keep on going. And I understand it's not a serious crime of something towards somebody, but you have to realize people have to make insurance claims. Now their bills go up. They have to replace stuff that's stolen. Their bills go up. So just because it's not a serious violent crime against somebody, it's still impacting our residents.
I get it. And I know it's very frustrating. even if it's small. It happened to me a couple of years ago, the exact same thing. I left my car unlocked, and you feel, I should be able to leave my car unlocked in my own driveway, but if you get groceries and take them in. But I understand the frustration, and I do think it's serious. I also think that we are having to be to balance it, just to echo what Mike and Derek both said with what is taking place right now, which is so unprecedented, and young people are going through quite a bit. We're hearing all kinds of things that are happening with young people with mental health and not having things to do, and I'm not making an excuse for them. So I am glad that for the most egregious offenses that we are looking at what to do, and otherwise I'd like to see us do some other types of mitigation strategies and looking into maybe more social service type interventions in order to impact this behavior. But I agree, it is very frustrating, but we all are aware and are certainly trying to find ways to curb it.
And that was part of the whole, community court part of Hartford. So when someone did do a crime of a lesser degree, that they would go in front of the community court, they would plead out to a lower charge, and as long as they stayed clean for that year and a half, then their record was expunged. And maybe if we brought something back like that to the juvenile, saying, hey, here's your choice, like you're talking about, you stay clean, it stays clear, but if you keep getting in trouble, then you're going to have a ding on your record. It's not going to be wiped out at 18 or 21. They have to know there's going to be consequences for their actions. And I just feel like there's no consequences. And to go on Derek's point, technology is going crazy now. Now I'm hearing people saying they had their key fob in their car, in their house, but they're able to get the signal now. There's that technology out there that people can get the technology to still break into the car. The key fob is still emitting a signal from X amount of feet away. So there's really no way to combat technology at the pace that's moving so quickly.
Joe, I want to jump on that. Good.
And then my last question just be about the police accountability bill. We're going to be having, money coming out of our pockets now to pay for cameras and for video storage and stuff like that. Is there any talks that the state's going to help reimburse towns for the cost that's going to come out of our pockets to appease these new bills items?
Joe, which specific cost are you talking about? I know the state is paying for a good part of it in terms of, this is the whole term, unfunded mandate, and there's parts of that bill that I know the state is paying for. So are there
the video storage? I think the video storage alone is going to probably be the biggest bill that any town or any city is going to have to hold. You're having how many hours of officers being stored for how long? How many years? 5 years, 10 years? That's a lot of room and a lot of computer capacity that has to be paid for and held for the time frame that needs to be required on. I think we're looking at least a minimum of $40,000 right off the hook, and as you start piling that on, it's just going to keep increasing and increasing. Especially with more officers on the road or everyone have a camera. So if we have 30 officers all with cameras running 8 hours for their shift of 12 hours, that's a lot of video storage to be holding.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up with you, Joe, and see about the cost and what impact Farmington's feeling from that, and where there is state reimbursement and maybe where there can be more. So happy to do that offline with you.
I second the motion. I will look into that as well, because I know that's a big, that's a big item. So we'll find out what the reimbursement situation is.
Thank you, everybody.
I appreciate all of you and your efforts you can make on the reimbursement, because as Joe said, it's the records keeping and the videos. We're not sure the cost of the cameras. We have cameras in some of the cars. We don't know whether those are going to comply with whatever the state's requiring. So there are different costs in there. So I appreciate your efforts on that. One thing I'm going to circle back to, you were talking about the car thefts. Not a question, really just a statement. Yes, people do need to lock their cars. We had some community meetings way back when we could actually meet in person. So this must have been last year around January or February. And the topic came up of the key fobs, and Joe touched on it. if you have your key fob in your house, your car sale may start. So wherever you store your key fob, see if the car starts with the key fob hanging on the hook inside the door, because there are people that go up to the cars, they're not locked, the key fob's inside, they just drive off with the car. So, and they have been escalating a little bit. There have been more break-ins now, and not just, just with the open and the crime of convenience. So unfortunately, it's ramping up a little bit, but thank you for your thoughts on that. Gary.
Good evening. Thank you, Tammy, Mike, and Derek for coming out tonight. Basically, most of the questions that we're going to ask were already asked. Most of it's pertaining to the school receiving dollars for us on that school project. But that's all really that's all I had. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you, and be well.
Thanks, Gary. Brian?
Thank you, CJ. This is Brian Connolly. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out to talk to us about our concerns and sharing ideas. And as you can see, there are a lot of concerns around cost, expenses, and my concern on costs is we have a new subcommittee getting together to talk about tax provisions for people in the town who might need some assistance. And I'm thinking particularly in this case about seniors. So I wanted to ask, what things does the state have coming down the road for seniors who might be looking for assistance, for financial assistance, tax abatements and things? And are there any things that we need, or any tax relief or cost relief for seniors with respect to COVID during these times? Or COVID expense reimbursement for seniors?
So Brian, I'm going to jump in. Thank you for the question. So I know a little bit about this because when I was on the council, sitting in your chair, if I'm not mistaken, well, not your chair at home, but your chair in the council chambers. So I was fortunate enough to be able to work on a tax abatement program for seniors and folks with disabilities, as I remember it. And I remember at the time that the Farmington had a tax relief program for seniors, but it piggybacked on tax relief that was already offered at the state level. Mm-hmm. So I guess this is a roundabout way of saying that there is tax relief at the state level that's already on the books. But we can look and see if there's any movement to increase that or to supplement that somehow. But I'm glad you guys are taking a look at that, actually, Brian, because that was what, maybe 13 years ago, 14 years ago, at the town level. So I'd say it's about time to take a fresh look at that program. And I'm happy to look at the state aspect of it as well.
Right, I've done a little research in the Husky program, financial aid programs, the rental assistance, ConPace, and maybe some healthcare things that are available. Is there anything new coming up that is not on this list or that's being considered that we need to be aware of as we, as the subcommittee gets together and starts addressing some of the concerns?
Brian, I could tell you, I'm chair of the aging committee, and we had a public hearing today, and we were discussing, a few bills related to this, and we're going to be raising a couple more. One, there's a proposal for a revolving loan fund for to help seniors with property taxes. A lot of seniors they do these reverse mortgages, and they don't realize that the property taxes are not part of that. Mm-hmm. So we're discussing that's one piece of helping seniors with the property taxes. Another is allowing towns to increase the threshold for property tax assistance and even, essentially saying, letting seniors not pay property taxes, right, for a certain amount of time. And we would give towns some discretion in that, but there's been some discussions of kind of widening that berth, so to speak, and allowing towns to do more in that regard. That would be permissive. It wouldn't be a mandate on towns. But it would allow them to do what works for them. I do think we're going to see some property tax relief initiatives. I hope from the governor as soon as tomorrow. And that's certainly something that, I would support, whether it be expanding the property tax credit that some of you know is as high as $500, and that it's been kind of whittled down over the last few years. So I think that's something that you're going to see. And then, Brian, this isn't related to property taxes, but it is related to seniors, is that, we're just really in the second year of an initiative to phase out the state income tax on Social Security and pension and retiree income. We were one of only 14 states in the country to have a state income tax on Social Security. And we voted to phase that out, and we're, well on our way to doing that. And so we've been solving multi-billion-dollar budget deficits without broad-based tax increases, and keeping that pledge to our seniors and retirees on the state income tax to get rid of that. So that's not on the property tax side, Brian, but that is going to provide real relief to middle-class seniors in the state, including in Farmington.
I think that's great news for a lot of people. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, that
Chris,
was my question.
appreciate it, Brian. Chris Fagan.
Jay, and thank you to the delegation for appearing tonight. I guess I'm going last, so a lot of the ideas that I had here were addressed already, so I won't belabor the point. I mean, as former chair of the Board of Education liaison to the board, I mean, obviously a lot of my issues are education related, and I was hoping that Derek, you would do kind of what you did a little bit at the board meeting last time when the delegation appeared there, but reiterate on the ECS funding and the pension sharing costs. And I would echo sort of what Joey touched on in terms of the mandates and associated costs with these unfunded mandates is a real drain on our system. And if you extrapolate out, I mean, our Board of Education budget makes up, just round things numbers off, 65 to 70% of our budget. So anything that's hitting the Board of Ed has a significant impact in terms of that. I would just, thank you for your work. Just, as Kathy Greeter said at your meeting, CAPS is preparing a blueprint for comprehensive state and federal funding, increasing that for us. And I would ask that you review that, work with Kathy and the administration in supporting that as it helps our financial burden here in town. And just, increase, if we get increased open choice funding, that would be appreciated. And, just a partner of ours during the COVID crisis has been the Farmington Valley Health District, and any support, increased funding that can be, provided to the Farmington Valley Health District would be greatly appreciated, because they've been a wonderful partner for us and the area and district in handling the challenges presented by the COVID crisis. So I guess it's more of a statement, just some hot button items for us, and continue to focus your energies on supporting our education, in our district in terms of the efforts there. So thank you very much for all your efforts.
Chris, I wrote them all down.
Okay.
When I write them down, they get done. Okay.
They get done. Well, they're not going to hold you to that, Mike. I know where to find you. I know where to find you.
Yes, you do.
Okay, very nice. I think we've all had our opportunities here. Derek, Mike, Tammy, any final words of wisdom?
I don't know if I have any words of wisdom, but I would like to just acknowledge and recognize I was really happy to see the Farmington Racial Equity, or I think you say equality there, task force, that I watched that meeting, and that was impressive presentation and the adoption of that. And I was curious to know what happened around the sustainable CT, if you're moving forward with that application or not.
Tammy, yeah, I mean, I'll address that because I'm the liaison to the Green Efforts Committee. Yes, we are. We passed a resolution to move forward with that, and our committee met last week with sort of, I guess, the best way to describe it was a very extensive spreadsheet setting forth sort of the various buckets and where you work with sustainable CT and accomplishing certain things under each bucket to reach the bronze certification. And where we are now is we're working jointly, we'll work jointly with the town and doing sort of a comprehensive review of what we're already doing in town. Because if you look at what we're doing, we can probably achieve a get a significant way to bronze certification without really undertaking any other significant attempts. We just work with Sustainable CT and we'll get there, and then we'll fine tune that and push forward with what else we need to do. But that process is underway. The committee met. We're going to, reconvene and see what we've already achieved, and then we'll take it from there and move forward with whatever else we have to do to get the certification. But it's in the works.
Very good, very good. I was hoping that was the outcome there.
Yep.
So I appreciate those two things. I think that's wonderful, wonderful efforts, and it's nice to meet with you. Thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you, Tammy. Mike, Derek?
Well, you know what? I'll jump in. Senator, is that okay? All right.
Mike, of course. Anything
Thank you,
for
sir. I usually defer to the Senate, but in this case, look, so I would like to reiterate what Tammy just said. I'm really proud of the fact that Farmington has taken the lead, with regards to the racial equity task force. They made a lot of great recommendations, and I look forward to seeing many of those being implemented, and I'm sure they will be. And then as far as green efforts, Farmington's always been a leader there, and so keep up the good work there. Just a couple things. I don't want to preach to you, but I will say one preachy thing. Don't let the newspaper headlines scare you too much. So Peter, I appreciate your opening question today, which started the conversation. But again, you're going to see a lot, between now and June, when the legislative session ends. You're going to see a lot of proposals. You're going to see a lot of ideas. You're going to see a lot of everything. Don't get too excited. If it's a good idea, it'll probably go through. If it's a lousy idea, it's probably not going anywhere. So that's always been my experience. So I just wanted to say that, and I just wanted to give credit to all of you. I mean, you guys dealt with you as the town leaders dealt with a really difficult situation over the past year. You kept everybody safe. You kept everybody informed, and I think you really just did a remarkable job, and so I give you a lot of credit. The final thing I want to say, which I say every year when we come in front of you guys, if there's something that you need, if there's something that you want, if there's something you want to talk about, complain about, suggest, just pick up the phone. That's all. Just pick up the phone, call me, call Tammy, call Derek, and we're happy to try to accommodate you as best we can. And for the most part, I don't think anyone on the council is shy about doing that. So continue. Thanks.
Brian, are you saying you want to speak, or are you waiting for us to go
Mike,
away?
I just want to say, I think you left some really big shoes behind the dais at my seat, in the town council chamber. So you might want to pick those up.
I want to thank you all for not having this on Valentine's Day, as you have a couple years ago. My wife and I are grateful. So thank you. It's on Sunday, so I guess we're in the clear. But you have my cell phone number. You have my email. Anything we can do, we're all in this together. I'm actually pretty bullish on this year in Connecticut. I think we're, we got a much better budget picture, as I mentioned. We're on the home stretch here in terms of, I think, finally turning the corner on the pandemic. I think you're going to see a lot of built up economic activity that's going to come out. And we're not playing defense on a lot of those things. And Chris, you mentioned that earlier. We talked about the Board of Ed, where we're not playing defense on ECS cuts. We went all the way to Halloween a couple years ago because we were defending ECS and state funding, and we didn't want the teacher pension obligation on the towns. We're not going to be playing defense on that this year. So, and the speaker just came out, and you may have seen in an editorial, and said he didn't support broad-based tax increases. We're winding up this fiscal year $150 million in the black. So, I think we've turned the battleship over from the last 60, 70 years of kicking the can down the road in many respects. So anyway, look forward to the partnership, working with all of you and strengthening Farmington in the state of Connecticut. So thank you guys very much for your time tonight.
Great. Thank you all. Tammy, Mike, Derek, appreciate your time tonight. Looking forward to hearing from you again. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
With that, we'll be moving on to item C3, a presentation for our Farmington audit year end. Kathy, you want to give any intro on that?
Hi, yes, we do have our auditors here, and this is our yearly report. And so I think we have Joe and Catherine. And so we did hand out some information or send some information to you guys. And so I'll hand it over to you.
Hello, good evening, everybody. So if you have that presentation, I'm just going to use that as a guide to kind of walk through some of the highlights from the audit, and then be happy to answer some questions after that. So I'm going to talk about the two reports. To start, the CAF for the big document, the financial statements, and then later on we'll talk about the federal and state single audit. So on page 7 and 8 is the opinion on the financial statements. And that's the unmodified clean opinion. Again, that's the type of opinion you're looking for. We had no scope limitations, no problems or issues with the audit. Starting on page 9 is the management discussion analysis. And this is a good executive summary of the significant things that occurred during the year. So I do recommend, if you can't read all 140 pages, that you read those 10 pages. It'll give you the highlights. So it does talk about the financial highlights related to the different financials that are in there. Such as an example, general fund on page 15, it talks about your unassigned fund balance being at 14.63%, which is a pretty good position to be in. It talks about some of the budget highlights, so some of the significant budget variances during the year for public works, highway, debt service, education. They were all underspent by various amounts, and we'll talk about some of the totals, but those were the big departments that you had significant budget savings in during the year. It does also discuss some of your major funds, so some of your larger funds that are more in the front of the report. So the CAP project funds up front on Exhibit C and D had an increase of fund balance of 8.4 million. And that basically was due to the issuance of debt, which was funding prior expenditures for the construction projects. Also talks about the two enterprise funds and what their operations were for the year with the results, and we'll talk about that a little bit farther down on the sheet. It talks about some of your significant capital asset additions and other activity, your construction in progress for some of the projects you have going on. The wastewater treatment plant was moved out of construction in progress into buildings and started being depreciating. So that project kind of wrapped up. Talks about your changes in long-term debts. Again, since you did issue debt for some of those projects, your debt net increase was about 5.4 million as compared to the prior year. Looking at general fund on Exhibit C and D, that's on page 22 through 24. Again, your unassigned fund balance was the $16.1 million, which again was almost 15%. Rating agencies like between 10 and 15% as far as evaluating fund balance position as being a strong position. So you're right at the top end of that. The net change in fund balance on Exhibit D was almost $1.1 million increase to your fund balance. As far as budgetary operations, you can the details of that are found on RSI 1 and 2 on pages 77 through 79. So this shows the details of basically your adopted budget, any changes to that budget, and what the final actual was. So revenues were under budget by almost 1.1 million, and expenditures were under budget by almost 1.2 million. Again, the MD&A talked about some of the major departments that were underspent. And then the difference, if you look at, because that doesn't equal $1,085,000, the difference is the encumbrances. So there's a different accounting for encumbrances. So that looking at the net increase, the net of those two numbers plus encumbrances that are recorded against your budget, that gives you the $1.1 million increase if you're trying to tie those items out. The Westwood funds, the increase in net position about $76,000. That was mostly driven by higher revenue as compared to the prior year. The waste collection fund had an increase in net position and equity of almost $56,000. So both your enterprise funds are having positive operations. Internal Service Fund had a significant increase of about almost 1.5 million. And this was pretty common across all our client base where due to COVID, there was lower than expected claims. So if you funded at a higher level, claims came in lower. There is the expectation that over last summer that some of that position would have been used up as people did return to doing elective surgeries and elective procedures and that type of thing. There's about 45 pages of footnotes. I just want to point out on page 56, there is a footnote that talks about coronavirus as a contingency as far as not knowing exactly what the full impact that it is, and every community is a little bit different. So our professional standards said that we should include that type of note, and not just in our government practice reports, but basically firm-wide, as that being an unknown, how it actually ultimately will affect operations. Well, the town pension fund is at 66% funded. Last year it was about 73% funded. So the decrease in the funding percentage was driven by a couple different things. First, the change in assumptions, which was the change in the mortality table, increased your liability by almost $6 million. And then the activity for the year resulted in a decrease in that position of about $750,000. So currently, cash flow wise, you're kind of running a little bit negative. And I assume that's just more retiree payments are occurring. So of course, the market's a lot different than it was at this point, but that's where we were at June 30. And then regarding OPEB, your other post-employment benefits, your pay as you go for that. So the liability was $59.5 million. That's up from the 52.7 last year. And basically the change in assumptions again drove that. And that's two things: was the discount rate, because you're not funded, you're using a bond rate. The municipal bond rate, so that went from like 3.5 down to 2.2, and then again the change in updating your mortality tables to be more current increased your liability by about 10.7 million, and then there were some other offsets. So your increase was about just under $7 million. And I'll have Catherine walk through the federal and state single audit and some of the recommendations.
On both the federal and state single audits, they both had unmodified or clean opinions. We also had no findings or question costs. For the federal single audit, we tested one program, the CDBG program, and for the state single audit, we tested 7 programs. You also received communications with those charged with governance. These include items such as significant accounting estimates, which include pension and OPEB liabilities and the medical incurred but not reported claims. The financial statement disclosures were consistent and clear, and we are independent from the town. There's also some new applicable GASB standards coming up in fiscal 2021. GASB 84 on fiduciary activities will be applicable. So the biggest thing with that one this year will be to evaluate your defined contribution pension plans. And GASB 87 will be applicable in 2022. So that one's about leases. You'll need to start gathering information on all the leases that you have. And then the last item we wanted to talk about was your recommendations. We have no significant changes from last year, other than 2 from last year were resolved. So I'm just going to run down the list of them. The first item is purchasing and accounts payable for both the town and Board of Ed relating to vendor approval and segregation of duties. Payroll for both the town and Board of Ed relates to segregation of duties. Golf course revenues is the next one, relating to maintaining documentation, unique logins for golf course personnel, policies and approvals. The next one is capital assets, just taking a look at the capital asset lives. Cafeteria cash receipts, we're recommending that they be recorded in the general ledger based on sales. Student activities, we're recommending you take a look at the segregation of duties there. and scholarship funds, we recommend that those are included in the general ledger. And the last item is just a best practice that the town consider implementing a fraud policy.
So it's kind of our overview. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that anyone has.
Unmute yourself, CJ.
Yes, I just noticed that. Raise your hand, anyone, if you have any questions from the council. Edward.
Yes, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Just a very general question. Are there any concerns? Do you have any concerns with how town management controls key business processes? I think you kind of touched a little bit on that in the recommendation section, but if you could answer that question.
Yeah, I think any of our concerns are addressed in the recommendations. And a lot of this is, best practice. So sometimes there are compensating controls, but if we do identify a risk, we do communicate that there is a risk. And then it's up to town council or management to decide if they're going to make changes in any of the internal controls or the policies or procedures to address those.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Brian.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. On the recommendations at the end, it looks like something that's certainly doable, but I'm wondering, is this in any particular order, or is there a priority we should be addressing this list?
Anything that's more internal control related, so the purchasing, the accounts payable, and the cafeteria cash receipts are probably the higher priority recommendations. And anything around revenue, so golf course would follow that. But the scholarship funds getting in the general ledger and the fraud policy is more of a best practice. And capital assets, again, that's more just a bigger picture that if you looking at your useful lives, because if you're using assets longer over time, it's an estimate and you should be revising the estimate, but that's less of a concern than anywhere where there's cash involved.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Other questions? Chris.
Yep. Let's see. I'm unmuted. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I guess just a point of clarification on something that's in the report. And it's generated obviously by the difficult decisions speaking on behalf of my fellow council members about the zero budget last year and then subsequent comments in the public domain about the decision we made. But on page 14 of the report, it says profits increased by 2.9 million due to the amount needed to fund the increase in the budget and the adopted budget. And I was just wondering, can you shed some light on it? Because it seems to maybe fly in the face of some of the actions we took and the discussion in the public domain. On page 14, the first bullet point.
Right. So that's just referring, as a comparison from last year. So on page 13, down under general revenues, there's property taxes that you raised last year were 99 million. This year's 102. So it doesn't imply a tax rate increase. It just implies that tax revenue increased.
Okay. Yeah, no, I figured as much. I just wanted clarification if, people are, it seems like it's, again, some of the discussion in the public domain, it may not be entirely clear. And then I guess just one question you raised about our fraud practices. I mean, obviously that caught my ear, and if we're not doing something, what can you just talk about that a little bit more for me?
Sure. So in addition to being an auditor, that type of thing, I'm, a certified fraud examiner. So it's just an area that I spend a lot of time in. So, best practice is to have a policy that specifically addresses fraud and makes it clear what the town considers fraud, what the penalties are for committing fraud and those type of things. So it's been proven that having a policy that directly addresses that, has an impact on employee behavior and is from a compliance perspective. So we probably have been recommending this policy for 20 years. I probably have 30 or 40 clients that have implemented that policy. And I can certainly, I do have a model that I'm happy to send to somebody, to management, to look at and tailor it to the town, but we do have a sample that you could use to kind of address that. But it communicates such things like what's the protocol when something happens, who gets notified, who's responsible, what the definition is fraud, and the example I always use that a lot of people don't think of. I put time on my timesheet, I didn't work. They don't think of that as being fraud. So it just kind of really frames things very clearly that those types of things are fraud. And normally the recommendation, the policy is a zero tolerance policy for those type of things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Joe Swetke, sorry, I missed your hand up earlier.
Thank you, CJ. I just want to clarify something on the question that Chris Fagan asked. That tax increase that they're talking about, that's not the current fiscal year. That was a comparison of the fiscal year 18-19 versus 19-20. It's not dealing with fiscal year 2021. So it's actually 2 years ago to last year. It's not the current year.
Oh. Okay, thank you, Joe. No, I appreciate that.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions from the council? Okay, seeing none. Catherine, Joseph, we appreciate the report. If we have any other questions that are coming up, we'll certainly get back to you on those. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to item D, public hearings. Seeing none, we'll move on to item E, new items. Also none. So that moves us to item F, public comment. At this point on our Zoom meetings, we have these in two phases. The first phase will consist of the town clerk. Paula Ray will be reading all of the correspondence we received. And the second phase will allow any attendee of this meeting the opportunity to speak. So I will turn it over to Paula Ray first.
Good evening, CJ. I have three letters to read tonight. The first regarding the Farmington Historic Commission vote on commission officers. Dear Mr. Thomas, we have at your request reviewed in our capacity as Farmington's town attorneys the legal opinions issued by the town's land use council, Robert M. DiCrescenzo, dated December 29, 2020 and January 12, 2021, respectively. In addition, we have also reviewed the town charter, town code, Connecticut general statutes, applicable Connecticut case law, the Farmington Historic District Commission bylaws, minutes of the commission's regular meetings of December 15, 2020, and special meeting of December 31st, 2020, and draft minutes of the regular meeting of the January 19th, 2021, Robert's Rules of Order, and a letter written by Jay Bombara to the town of Farmington dated December 22nd, 2020, inviting the town to seek legal advice to confirm, one, that both regular members and alternates could participate and vote on the election of officers, two, that bylaws regarding election of officers were invalid and not of no effect. Attorney DiCrescenzo was then asked by both the town manager and the town council chair to respond to questions posed by Mr. Bombara, and twice opined that Mr. Bombara's conclusions were incorrect. We begin by saying that we unequivocally endorse the legal opinions rendered by Attorney DiCrescenzo, that the election of officers conducted by the commission on December 15, 2020 was proper and in accordance with the commission's bylaws, the town code, the Connecticut general statutes. At the December 15th meeting, all of the regular members of the commission were present and voted 4-1 to elect Evan Honeyman as chairman of the commission, effective January 1st, 2021. There was no evidence that Mr. Honeyman declined the position after the election took place. An election to an office becomes final and immediate if the candidate is present and does not decline to accept the position after the vote. See Robert's Rules of Order 46. It appears that Mr. Bombara bases his claim of the invalidity of the December 15th election on the unsupported belief that the commission's bylaws, which state that only the 5 regular commissioners are empowered to vote in the election of officers, are contrary to the provisions of section 111-3C of the Town Code, which state that the commission shall elect annually a chairman, a vice chairman, and a clerk from its own number. This language is identical to that found in section 7-147C(d) of the Connecticut General Statutes. All actions taken by the commission, whether it be on applications or electing its officers, is by the vote of its regular members or properly seated alternates acting in place of irregular members who are not present or have a conflict of interest in the action to be taken. Statutes should be construed so that they make common sense and so that there are no bizarre results. Knapp versus Inland Wetlands Commission, 7 Connecticut Act 283, 285, 1986. If Mr. Bombara's interpretation of the ordinance and statute were correct, alternates who otherwise would not be able to vote on a matter before the commission could be elected as chairman, vice chairman, and secretary respectively, since they would be from its own number. This interpretation would then be in conflict with provisions set forth in Article 5 of the Commission's bylaws, limiting the officers to regular members of the Commission, and well-established case law that actions taken by municipal agencies are made only by votes cast by regular members and seated alternates. Such an absurd result and interpretation could not be sustained. Rather, the bylaws, ordinance, and general statutes all logically limit the votes on the election of officers to the regular members of the commission, unless an alternate was seated due to the absence or conflict of a regular member. And is consistent with Connecticut case laws discussed in Attorney DiCrescenzo's letters. Motions that conflict with the bylaws or with procedural rules prescribed by national, state, or local laws are out of order. And if any motion of this kind is adopted, it is null and void. See Robert's Rules of Order 39. For the reasons set forth above, and for those set forth in the 2 opinion letters written by Attorney DiCrescenzo, it is our opinion that the motion to reconsider made by Mr. Bombara on December 31st, 2020 was improper and its passage null and void. Thus, the election which took place thereafter was of no legal effect. Rather, the election which took place on December 15th, 2020 was valid and effective, and Mr. Honeyman properly became chairman of the commission as of January 1st, 2021. We trust that Mr. Bombara, upon review of this opinion, as well as reconsideration of the 2 opinions written by Attorney DiCrescenzo, will properly acknowledge the validity of the election which took place on December 15, 2020. If he refuses to do so, the town council could consider his removal from the Historic District Commission in accordance with the provisions of section C-71 of the town charter after a hearing on the matter. We hope that you will find the enclosed analysis helpful and will assist in bringing this unfortunate matter to a close. However, if you or any member of the town council have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. Very truly yours, Halloran and Sage, Duncan J. Forsyth, and Kenneth R. Slater Jr. The next is a letter in response to legal opinion from the chairman to dear members of the Farmington Historic District Commission. It is with great disappointment that I am forced to send you this letter. Regrettably, the recent conduct of the Farmington Historic District Commission warrants action. Attached for the members' information is a 3rd legal opinion from a 2nd law firm. It should be noted that all legal opinions on this matter were compiled by 2 highly regarded municipal and land use law firms in the state of Connecticut. This 3rd opinion confirms the following. The election of Evan Honeyman as chairman of the Farmington Historic District Commission on December 15, 2020 was properly held and executed. The December 31st, 2020 vote for reconsideration of the chairmanship was improper and thus null and void. The December 31st, 2020 election was of no legal effect. Evan Honeyman is the duly elected chair of the Farmington Historic District Commission. The matter of who is chair of the Farmington Historic District Commission is closed. Evan Honeyman will preside as the chair of the commission going forward. This issue has cost the town considerable time and money. All 3 legal opinions rendered were clear. The town of Farmington holds itself to the highest standards of conduct. It is inappropriate at best to disregard 3 legal opinions that have all reached the same conclusion. Our boards and commissions do not ignore bylaws, town ordinances, state statutes, and case law. The actions of the Historic District Commission are completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. I trust this letter, along with the attached 3rd and final legal opinion, should satisfy any questions you have on this matter. Failure to move forward as outlined above will result in further action by the town council. Sincerely, C.J. Thomas. And the 3rd letter I have tonight is from Portia and Tim Corbett, 11 Mountain Spring Road, Farmington. It's addressed to Lisa Johnson, town historian, but has been going to be read into the record. Lisa, it is with regret and much reflection that Tim and I are writing to you to withdraw our permission to enter our 2 homes, 11 and 21 Mountain Spring Road, into the Farmington Historic District. Although we have been in Farmington for 23 years, for the past 20 years we have lived in, restored, and maintained 2 of Farmington's historically significant houses. We do not have to tell you how much passion, proficiency, and personal funds this entails. You certainly know what we are speaking of through your own experiences. Through the years, we have always understood, as stated on the town website, the Historic District Commission is charged with promoting the educational, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the towns through the preservation and protection of the distinctive characteristics of buildings and places of historic interest within the established historic district. To us, commissioners are monitors of the historic district, protectors, advisors. We have seen commissioners come and go, requests approved and denied. There has been a myriad of applications, each unique unto itself. We have disagreed with some of the conclusions of the commission, but also have agreed with others. One thing was always for certain, though, that the commissioners had the knowledge and the experience of living in a historic home within a historic district with similar experience as ours. They rendered their decision on each homeowner's request with this knowledge. Even if these mandates included additional costs to the homeowner, at least the decision was coming from an awareness of the complexities in maintaining such homes. Given the recent changes in the Farmington Historic District Commission, calling into question the appropriate governance, the qualifications of commissioners, and the diminished number of allowable voting members on the commission, we fear there is a greater risk of ill-fitted decisions concerning our interests as well as others. The Farmington Historic District is no longer something we would like to be part of. We will, of course, continue on the path of preserving our property as the Nortons, Barneys, and Yukon had done before us, but without a partnership with the Historic District Commission. Please present this letter at the Farmington Historic District Commission meeting so all will be aware as to why we have withdrawn our interest. Thank you, Portia and Tim Corbett. And that is the end of the letter, CJ. CJ, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I lost my mute button for a minute there. Thank you, Paula. We will now move on to the second part of our Zoom public comment. If you're logged on, please just raise your hand and we will call on you. Remember to lower your hand after you've been called on. When you are called on, we are trying to keep all comments to 3 minutes, so please be respectful of others with that. And I will remind you, we don't make personal comments during the public comment sector. State your name and address. And Anna, would you tell me who's first? Oh, sorry. John Reinahan, you will be our first comment.
Thanks, CJ. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you fine. Thank you.
Town council members, last session, I inquired about your methodology in appointing people to town committees, and I've yet to hear a response from any of you. Perhaps it is because you don't want to bring attention or shine any light to your clandestine process of having the Republican Town Committee decide who should serve in these positions. Feel free to enlighten me, but I can't find in our town charter where this responsibility is granted to any political group or committee. I believe this responsibility falls squarely on the 7 of you to make decisions on who is most qualified to serve. Your lack of judgment has impacted our Historic District Commission. As I share some of the facts, I ask you to listen as town council members that serve the town, not your political party. You need to be more accountable and take responsibility for your actions. Your poor decisions and lack of transparency has cost Farmington thousands in legal bills, which could have been prevented if you decided to lead more with character than petty politics. Do you really think that it is in the best interest of the historic district to have a person who has been to one meeting serve as chair? Our commission does not, as 5 out of the 7 of us preferred that Jay Bambara continue to serve as chair. Do you think it is important for candidates for chair to share their relevant experience with the other commissioners before we vote on who to elect? Jay Bambara was comfortable sharing his experience. The other candidate declined to answer. Who else did you consider for the latest seat that you filled in January? Who decided? Did you even ask about relevant experience? Do you think it is important for commissioners to live in the historic district? I guess not. Your last 2 appointees do not own historic homes in the district. Have you discussed the Farmington Historic District Commission matter as a town council? If so, how come you have not shared any of your discussions more publicly so that town members can become more aware of this situation and weigh in? Jay Bambara has served as chair and done a solid job. Jay cares deeply about the preservation of our town, and he's a fixture at any event or activity hosted by the Historical Society, Stanley Whitten House, or the Farmington Village Green and Library Association. If you asked for endorsements across town, I'm sure Jay would be appreciated and well recognized for his dedication and thoughtfulness in preserving our historic district. Removing him as chair is not the best course of action, and you are not acting in the best interest of the community. Leaders don't hide behind legal briefs or mislead the public with quotes in the local paper. You all have an opportunity to rectify the situation, reflecting on your responsibility in this mess. Be thoughtful and transparent, and remember who you were elected to serve. Actions speak louder than legal ease. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll move on to Jay Bambara.
Hi, can you hear me okay, CJ?
Yep, we can hear you fine, Jay.
Okay, I honestly was not planning on even attending this. Actually, oddly, last night, someone mentioned there was a meeting and I looked on the website and I couldn't even find it under the next 7 days. So unfortunately, I did. And then somebody tonight said maybe this issue would come up. I did not realize that these opinion letters would be, or the one opinion letter and one letter from CJ would be read into the record. So I do feel it's important that I at least let people who might be listening know what's going on. The first thing I have to say is, and it's something John Renahan just touched on, these are what, as they're called, they are opinion letters. They are not law. These lawyers are not the judges, nor is any member of the town council, including the town chair, nor the interim or formerly interim town planner. The issue was simply an issue of the election, of how the commission decided to elect its leadership. We had an election December 15th. We were told that only regular members could vote. I pointed out, or after people had called me concerned, I was willing to let it go, that that was not correct. And so I did the research, and I'll read again partly what was read tonight in one of the opinions, but they conveniently left out the second part. So it is true that the ordinance says the commission with a capital C shall elect annually a chairman, vice chairman, and a clerk from its own number. Now, for some reason, conveniently, the attorneys continually skip over another section of the code which clearly states, the Farmington Historic District Commission, parentheses, hereinafter referred to as the, quote, capital C Commission, close quote, shall consist of 5 regular members and 3 alternate members who shall be electors of the town and holding no salaried municipal office. So the definition of commission is 5 regular members and 3 alternate members. And then the ordinance says the commission shall elect annually a chairman, vice chairman, and a clerk. The plain language of the statute, which by the way is the first way you analyze a statute, is that the 5 regular members and the 3 alternate members vote for their leadership. And in fact, that's a good idea. If I'm an alternate, the chairman and others have power, including whether or not to appoint me or somebody else, if I'm an alternate, to be seated as a regular member. So I think that's a fairly straightforward interpretation. There's nothing where I or anyone else is being unreasonable to hold that position. And I will note, we had a vote at the commission level whether or not to accept that interpretation. And it was voted 5-2 to accept that interpretation. So as I recently received the letter, one of which was the letters written or read into the record tonight, stating that one of the actions may be to remove me, all I can ask is, well, why aren't you going to remove the other 4 people who also apparently are disregarding, in your view, the law? And of course, that would be absurd. So it's horrible to see that the town council has now interfered with the operations of a commission. They should be left to the commission. You have the power to appoint. Mr. Renahan just had some comments about that, many of which I agree with, but you have the power to appoint, and after that, you should stay out of it. I have many other issues. I am trying to respect time here. That includes why it was necessary to get a second law firm to opine here. There was absolutely no reason. In fact, the second opinion from the first lawyer was brought up at the January 15th meeting, and nobody, including the lawyer, had anything to add to it. But neither Mr. Honeyman nor any other members of the commission wished to discuss it. At that point, I assumed that this issue is done for now, as I've said, and in December, we have another election. That's the way it works. Now, finally, I want to add one other thing.
Yeah, you're at 5 minutes, so can you wrap up?
Thanks. So my last thing, I will see you finish up. Mr. DiCrescenzo himself, the first attorney I spoke with, said to me that if I didn't agree with him or the commission didn't agree with him, that's okay. It's just an opinion. That's all it is. So I really do not appreciate the language in these letters characterizing me as somehow disregarding the law or whatnot. I am, by the way, an attorney for those who may not know me. I practiced for 30 years. I work with statutes. I work with contracts. I'm pretty comfortable that when I read something, I think I know what it means and how a judge might review it. If a judge ever wants to decide the case, fine. But CJ Thomas is not a judge. The council is not a judge. None of those attorneys are judges. So they should stay out of this. And I would also ask the council to retract the email I just received from Shannon Rutherford informing the commission that Evan Honeyman, because of these letters, is the chairman. It's not for Shannon Rutherford to decide. It's not for CJ Thomas to decide. We will decide that at our next meeting, although at the moment, my understanding is I am the chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. Bruce, your hand's up next.
He went to.
Bruce?
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can hear you, Bruce.
Okay, thank you. Bruce Charette, 123 Main Street. I wasn't going to talk tonight either, but I felt that it was very important because I care about this community. And as I looked at every single council member sitting on this council, not one person owns a historic piece of property. So I'm going to tell you a story of what happened to me when I first moved into town. In 2013, I purchased my property. My property fell into the historic district, and I had to go and work with the historic commission to approve my plans to build my house. I was extremely grateful of the amount of dedication and attention to detail that that commission gave me and my partner, Dan Bailey, to help build this house into this community. It gave me so much joy to work with that commission, with the vast knowledge of information that they had to bring. After my house got built, I decided I wanted to give back. And by giving back, I inquired on how I can get onto this committee. And there was an opening. I got appointed to this committee, and I was so grateful. I got appointed, but before I got appointed, you know what they asked me? Where do I live? What knowledge do I bring? What experience I brought? So on and so forth. But here's something very interesting. After I was appointed, and I believe there's quite a few council members that are sitting on this commission that probably remember my letter that I sent back to the commission. I resigned. You want to know why I resigned? Because a council member came to me and told me, you know, Bruce, we appointed you to a regular full-time seat. And it's your decision to do whatever you want to do, and it's up to you to decide. There are alternates that have been sitting on this commission that
the Democrats appointed him to the full seat instead.
I'm sorry, someone's talking over me. Can you guys still hear me?
We can hear you, Bruce.
Okay. So I ended up resigning, knowing the fact that I was going to be reappointed as an alternate, because I felt that that was the right thing to do for this community. And you want to know what was really special? And I know Peter is sitting on this council right now, and I know he knows what I'm talking about because he was on this council, and I know he was aware of this. I resigned because it was the right thing to do. And you want to know something? That council left it up to me to make that decision. Now, I don't know Evan, and I'm sure he's a good person. And I would hope a good person would do the right thing. Now, I am appalled that all of this is in the newspapers and they're having all these discussions and second and third legal opinions, but none of this was really discussed at a council meeting. I went to my liaison person who sits on the liaison for the Farmington Historic Commission, and he didn't know this was going on with CJ and the attorneys. So it makes me wonder, is CJ and Evan, are you supporting Evan? And this is why you got the second and third opinion. So I don't know that. But anyways, I'm going to go on to another item. I read in the agenda that you guys are disbanding.
Bruce, you're up to 4 minutes, just so you know.
Thank you. Disbanding the Village Committee Center. CJ and Edward, you guys were on this council. We worked very hard on this committee. And the reason why this Village Center Committee was created and the way it was created to be agile enough so you don't have to disband and recreate another committee. It was created in a way that you had a variety of people across our community. You had the town historian, you had the Historic Society, you had the Historic District, you got the Village Green Library Association, and then you had 3 members of the business community. But I read in the minutes and I'm in the agenda, and I'm anxious to see what you guys are going to talk about disbanding this other committee. I know there's more work to be done on it and recreate another committee, but we don't know who's being appointed except for a variety of people around the community. It was very transparent and it was agile enough so we're not wasting town resources and creating a brand new committee rather than using existing committee. Please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. I don't see any other hands up. Anna? See any? Okay, no more hands. So we will be closing out public comment. I will just make one statement. The 3 letters that were read.
CJ, I just saw Chris Sparks' hand go up.
Oh, Chris, go ahead. Chris Sparks. Chris Sparks?
Maybe,
saw your
maybe
hand
you
up for
took
a
it down,
second.
maybe you took it down, yeah.
Okay. Up, your hand's up again. Chris, are you there, Chris?
Good.
Chris, we can't hear you. Chris, are you there?
Sorry.
I heard sorry. I heard that, Gar.
We just got a chat and it says his microphone isn't working.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry,
Hello?
Chris.
Hello?
Yep. I can hear that. I can hear hello.
You can hear me.
Yes.
I apologize. Funky computer. I would just like to say that I'd like more emphasis be placed in future meetings on automotive thefts and robberies. These people who are being treated as juveniles are up to 26 years old, according to state statute. More than that, they are not crimes of opportunity. These are people that are very well organized. They're stealing vehicles and they're disposing of them through shipping containers out of Bridgeport. Where they go from there, I can't honestly tell you, but I came from a surrounding town only a few years ago and I'd worked with the police there extensively because I used to have a lot of video off of the security system on my house of surrounding neighbors having cars stolen regularly. And this is an epidemic throughout the entire state. Every time you turn around, it's being dismissed and it shouldn't be. It's only going to get worse. So.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you all for everything you're doing. It's very actually appreciated.
Thank you. Any other hands up? Okay, seeing none. I will clarify the 3 letters that were read into the record at the beginning were at the request of Brian Connolly from the Farmington Historic District. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, with that, we'll be closing public comment. We will be going to item G, reading of the minutes.
Peter Mastro Batista, I'd like to make a motion to accept the January 12th, 2021 regular town council meeting.
Joe Capitafaro, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next.
Peter Mastro Batista, I make a motion to accept the January 26th, 2021 regular town council meeting.
Joe Capitafaro, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just one
Brian.
point, CG. I don't know if this is the right place to mention this, but I did ask for a change to one of the commissions, and I don't know if it's going to be, if that's a minutes change, but I know you had a statement about that, and I don't know if this is the place for that or not.
No, you did not ask for that at the last meeting, did you?
No, it was today. That was something that Paula wrote up about the change in the appointments to the Historic Commission.
Yes.
About the tenure of.
Yep. We'll discuss that when we get to Historic Commission.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was a minutes thing or not,
Yeah.
since it was
No.
in the minutes.
Nope, not minutes. Thanks.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Good. Appreciate it. Okay, so for the January 26th minutes, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passed unanimously. Item H. Peter, reading correspondence.
I think that's me, CJ.
Oh, Kat, sorry.
That's
Kat.
CJ, yeah.
So as you, in your packet, you have a correspondence that I wrote to Governor Lamont with various other towns. We did talk about it with our legislative group, and it's asking that the pilot fund be funded to the appropriate levels. And hopefully, based on some of the conversation we had with our legislative group in some of these towns, we maybe will see some more pilot funds coming to Farmington.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Kathy on that? Okay, moving on to item I. Report of the committees. Yukon Health Committee, we have no report. Second, Land Acquisition Committee.
Nothing to report, CJ.
Thank you, Peter. Green Efforts Committee.
Yes, CJ. This is kind of highlighted in my response to Tammy earlier tonight. The Green Efforts Committee met last week, and sort of our first initial step was to look sort of at the scorecard for sustainable CT and sort of look at the various items and line items and buckets where we need to undertake tasks to get score points for our bronze certification. And as the committee discussed, there was plenty of opportunities there for us to capitalize on what we've already done in town and continue to do that will relieve some of the burden in terms of undertaking additional work or tasks to get the certification. So we're working together and with Erica with Erica to see and work with Sustainable CT to see where we can already sort of have them score us and say, okay, we're already at this level, we need to do X, Y, and Z. So the process is underway. It was a very informative and good meeting for us to see what we've already done and where we're going, and hopefully we'll just sort of confirm all that and then move forward with sort of more affirmative action steps after we see sort of place set for us to see where we are right now. But it was a very productive meeting and it's moving forward.
Great, thank you, Chris. And Farmington High School Building Committee.
Yeah, I guess we're meeting tomorrow night, but I was not part of the meeting last night, but I believe that we presented to the Planning and Zoning last night, which was the same video presentation that was presented to us, and then also the Board of Education. The subcommittee for communications will be meeting tomorrow, as will we tomorrow night. And that's all kind of shooting forward towards the February 16th meeting, again, before the council, during which time they'll provide the survey results, some additional updates as to items requested at our previous meeting on the 26th, talk about some of the financial information that we talked about, and then discuss recommended referendum timeframe. So that'll be coming up on the 16th, and we're looking forward to presenting at the council at that time.
Thank you, Chris. Racial Equity Task Force.
Yes, Joe Capitafaro. I'm happy to say that on February 17th at 6:30 to 8, we'll have a Zoom webinar where they'll be featuring Black in Suburbia. It's going to be featuring Frederick Joseph, the author of The Black Friend on Being a Better White Person. It'll be moderated by a Farmington High School senior named Macy Adacola. I hope I didn't screw your name up too much. And this is going to be a series of monthly community education meetings of equity and inclusion.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Village Center Parsons Properties Ad Hoc Committee. We have a very nice presentation, a greatly anticipated presentation. Kathy, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Good evening. Tonight I will be presenting the Parsons Ad Hoc Committee report and recommendations. The ad hoc members are CJ Thomas, Brian Conley, Peter Mastrobatista, myself, Russ Arnold, and Rose Ponte. I just wanted to let the town council know that this is a rather lengthy presentation. This is a summary of 6 years of previous committees' work. The ad hoc committee felt that it was important to give a history of past committee work so that the town council and the public could have a better understanding of the recommendations that we'll make tonight. First, I will provide a history and the work accomplished by the 2 former committees. First, the Gateway Committee, and then the Farmington Village Center Committee. I will then present the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. The Gateway Committee. In 2015, the state of Connecticut DOT started a long-awaited safety project to improve traffic flow and minimize traffic accidents on Route 4 in the vicinity of Farmington Village Center. As part of this project, the Connecticut DOT purchased the Parsons property, and once the project was completed, the state planned to sell the property. As a result of this project, the town determined that it was important to engage the community and develop a plan and vision for the future use of this important gateway, and appointed the Gateway Committee. The town hired a consultant to facilitate a 3-day workshop that included a SWOT analysis, a walking tour of the area, a morning session for residents to develop their vision for the future of this area. The Farmington Center Master Plan was developed from the results of these 3 workshops. The master plan recommended that Parsons property be obtained from the state, and developer proposals should include mixed uses, including residential, commercial, and office uses. When the master plan was presented, all agreed that the town should retain control of this important parcel, but many residents voiced their concerns about the environmental liability associated with the purchase of the Parsons property. It was determined that before the town acquired the Parsons property, the site should be environmentally clean. In 2016, the Gateway hired a consultant that conducted a phase 1 environmental assessment, a market study, a traffic and parking analysis of the Parsons property. Using the results, a concept plan was developed for the future use of the property. I will now discuss the Farmington Center Village Committee. On July 10, 2018, the Town Council appointed the Farmington Village Center Committee with 6 specific goals. I will now review those goals. Charge 1 and 2, to develop recommendations to the Town Council regarding the future use of the Parsons property, including ownership, control, and use. The committee recommended that it was in the best interest of the town to own the Parsons property, but not take ownership until all environmental due diligence was complete. It took many years, but in August 2020, all environmental studies required were completed, and it was determined that the Parsons property was environmentally clean. Charge 3, if the property was transferred to the town of Farmington, the committee would listen to the community to understand the types of uses for the Parsons property which would enhance the village. Summary, the Farmington Village Center Committee worked with consultants and the community at large to develop the community's vision for the future development of the study area. During the meetings, the community expressed their vision for the area with the following goals. The project should not negatively contribute to traffic, improve pedestrian connectivity, increase public parking options, include open space, attract small retail offerings such as restaurants, ice cream shops, and unique retailers, allow low-density, high-end housing options, preserve the historic town center character, i.e. Farmington's brand. Charge 4, based on those findings and direction from the town council, the committee would conduct a process to identify a preferred developer to partner with the town to secure and develop the Parsons property in a manner which complements the historic buildings and the historic district, and define the most prominent entry in Farmington as a place of high quality, beauty, and character, and recommend that developer to the town council. In summary, the town did not receive any responses to the RFP by the deadline date of January 31st, 2020. Charge 5 was the committee will recommend a preferred developer to the town council. Since developers did not respond to the RFP, these items were no longer applicable. Quality of life enhancements charge. The committee was also charged with recommending quality of life enhancements, sidewalks, street trees, landscaping, street furniture, historic markers, wayfinder signage, and universal design improvements. On June 13, 2019, a streetscape master plan was presented to the Farmington Village Committee. This streetscape master plan is a roadmap for implementing the community's vision for a universally acceptable, greener, safer, and welcoming Farmington Village Center. On July 9, 2019, the town council approved the report. In conclusion, the Farmington Village Committee built upon the work of the Gateway Committee and created a Farmington Village Center master streetscape plan. That concludes the summary of the work that has been completed since 2005. I will now discuss the charge and the recommendations of the Town Council Ad Hoc Committee. On July 24, 2020, the Town Council appointed an ad hoc committee to work with town staff to make recommendations to the Town Council on the following: the future use of Parsons property, the environmental liability associated with the ownership of Parsons property, the phasing portion of the BSC Streetscape Improvement Plan, the selection of a preferred developer for the development of Parsons property. Ad hoc committee goal 1, the future use of Parsons property. As everyone is aware, and as what we discussed tonight, the former Parsons lot is a visible and important parcel to the Village Center neighborhood, but it does have limited development potential. Factors that negatively impact the market potential of this parcel include the following: it's less than 3 acres in size, an easement runs through 30% of the property, public parking is needed in this area, the community desires low density development, the community does not want to increase traffic. There were also other limitations that the committee considered. The town would likely have to subsidize or provide incentives to a developer. There was lack of developer interest, uncertainty brought on by the COVID pandemic, The Connecticut DOT appraisal of this property is $2 million. Based on these factors, the committee reached out to the Connecticut DOT to explore if the state would be willing to convey the property to the town as modified open space. The state agreed that modified open space could include a welcome gateway, public parking, Historical Society Welcome Center building, potential relocation of a historical structure. The state has agreed to convey the property to the town for $1,000. Although the committee's recommendation differs from what has been discussed over the last several years, the committee believes that acquiring this parcel at a nominal fee will benefit the commercial potential of the entire Gateway area. The committee discussed that the redevelopment of the former Parsons parcel as a modified open space concept will trigger commercial development of the adjacent commercial parcels and allow to accomplish the goals originally stated by the community, which included the following. The project should not negatively contribute to traffic. It should improve pedestrian connectivity. It should increase public parking options. It should include open space. It should attract small retail offerings such as restaurants, ice cream shops, and unique retailers. It should allow low-density, high-end housing options. In summary, the ad hoc recommendations for Goal 1 are that the town and the DOT finalize the specific details of the modified open space concept. The town host an informal meeting with the community, an informational meeting with the community to receive public comment on the modified open space concept for the former Parsons property. It should be noted that the town can in the future renegotiate a new value with the state of Connecticut if the town determines that the property will be used for economic development purposes. I will now discuss ad hoc committee Goal 2. The environmental liability associated with the ownership of the Parsons property. Additional environmental tests were conducted in August 2020, and it was determined that the site was clean. The committee is recommending no further action. Goal 3 is the phasing portion of the streetscape plan. On November 10, 2020, the Town Council approved a $2 million Phase 1 of the implementation plan. The Main Street Sidewalk project is going out to bid this winter, 2021, and will end construction to begin in the spring of 2021. Goal 4 is the selection of a preferred developer for the development of the Parsons property. This goal is no longer required if the Town Council agrees with the ad hoc committee's recommendation to the modified open space concept as I have described earlier. The committee had some additional recommendations that I will now present. The Colton-Carrington intersection realignment. Over the years, the town of Farmington received some concerns that this intersection was dangerous for both vehicles and pedestrians and asked the town to improve the intersection. As a result, the town's traffic review board has reviewed this intersection and has included the sidewalks, the pedestrian access, as well as the safety and traffic concerns for the entire Main Street area. The ad hoc committee discussed that if this intersection needed to be modified, the best time to make this modification would be when the sidewalk project on Main Street was taking place. The committee has concluded that the data does not indicate a safety issue at this intersection and believes that changing the intersection could potentially alter the existing historical character of the area. Another factor the committee considered was the cost. Realigning the intersection is costly and the data does not support a safety issue. For those reasons, the ad hoc committee's recommendation is that the intersection be left in its current state. To discharge the Farmington Village Center Committee. The Farmington Village Center Committee completed their charge. Therefore, it's the recommendation of the ad hoc committee that the Farmington Village Center Committee be formally discharged. To create a new committee. If the Parsons property is conveyed from the DOT to the town as the open space concept, the ad hoc committee recommends that the council appoint a new committee with a charge to help design the redevelopment of the Parsons property and work on Phase 2 of the Streetscape Improvement Master Plan. The committee should be comprised primarily of members of the community that live and work in the village. In conclusion, the ad hoc committee is recommending the following: that the town and the DOT finalize the specific details of the modified open space concept. 2, host a public informational meeting with the community to receive public comment on the modified open space concept for the former Parsons property. 3, that the Colton-Carrington intersection be left in its current state. 4, that the Farmington Village Center Committee be thanked for their work and formally discharged. and that a new committee be appointed with the charge to help design the redevelopment of the Parsons property and work on phase 2 of the streetscape improvement master plan once the property is conveyed by the state of Connecticut. The next steps, the committee is recommending that the town council have a formal action item to approve the ad hoc recommendations at its next meeting. That's the end of my report. I was wondering if any of the other committee members would like to add anything, and then we would open it up to questions from the town council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Brian, Peter?
Yes, thank you. You know, this was a wonderful presentation. This is really pretty much everything that we kind of agreed to as an ad hoc committee, and you did a great job presenting it. Two things I wanted to just clarify, and one is the new commission. I understand why we want to do a new commission, but as what was stated earlier, you know, we do have a village committee with a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that span those first 2 projects. And I think it would be a real shame to lose that, but I understand there's a real interest in creating a new committee. But I think as much as we want to give preference to the people who live in the village, we may also want to consider the folks who have already served and can bring that knowledge full bore and fully around. So I just wanted to mention that, and also that we give, you know, preference to individuals who live and work in the village as we are doing. So, and I'm glad that we just have, you know, people who have vested interest and have real qualities and expertise that they can bring to that commission.
Thank you, Brian. And as we discussed at our last meeting of the ad hoc committee, I think we'll certainly look at the current members and see which ones of those would like to and would be interested in joining this new committee. So we'll have that as a discussion. Peter?
Yes, CJ. Kathy, do you think you'd just go into a little bit more detail on the process for seeking developers for the parcel, and maybe Rose can chime in on why we didn't get any responses at all on this piece of property, and maybe go into a little detail on if we do get this property from, or we pay for this property from the state for $1,000, if we, in the future, how we would have to renegotiate another possible price for this property with the state, or pay them more since we have a potential use for it.
Sure. I think Rose is on the line. Rose, do you maybe want to start with the RFP and some of the issues that we saw and how the process went?
Sure. We wrote an RFP, and we were a little bit surprised that we did not receive any respondents. And so we asked a couple of people why they did not respond. And a lot of it really hinged on a number of different factors. And a lot of it was the unknown. At the time, we still had not gotten the 100% report that the environmental was totally taken care of. But also, if you recall, that particular parcel is not that large. And so developers were very concerned that not only did we expect the development not to be very dense, but also we also had asked that there would be public parking associated with it. So I actually reached out to about three to four different developers asking why they did not respond. And they just said that there were too many unknowns. We had too many, specifics on what we really wanted the development to look like. And there wasn't enough density for them to take that much risk. And when you look at it from a developer's point of view, I did understand why there was reluctance to answer that RFP. And the way I look at it, I think this is such an important piece of property. It was very important for us to really state in that RFP the specifications that were important to us. And we didn't want there to be very high density. We didn't want huge buildings there. We wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to create some public parking. And so when you looked at it, I think it was almost a case of our needs not being able to be fulfilled for developers, for them to also make a profit. So if I had to kind of go on a limb and try to predict why we didn't get any responses, I would say that would be the main reasons.
Peter, did we hit on your question? Was there anything else to that?
Yeah, that answered my first one. And just maybe a little detail on if we acquire this property for $1,000, what would be the process if we wanted to do something or a developer came along? How would that price potentially change? What's that all about? How does that work?
Right. I think in summary, there's a couple of things. First, this process, we're going to have to go back to the state and about them conveying the property to us as the new concept, this open space concept. So we have to, hammer that out, but we do have in writing with them that they do agree to what we had described in the presentation. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is that if for some reason in the future that all of a sudden we wanted to either flip a portion of the property or use that property for more of a commercial type or economic development, we would have to renegotiate the price, because as you know that the state has, when we were going to use it for economic development, the price was much higher than the $1,000. I think, what was it, Rose? Is it $2 million?
Yeah, it was $2 million.
$2 million asking price. So we would have to go back and renegotiate with them a price if we were using it for economic development. But that still would be an option if we had a developer or something like that and we wanted to do that, we could. But again, Rose, one thing I think it would be kind of, we touched on it in the presentation, but you do such a good job explaining kind of the area around it and how with our modified open space and saying how it's going to spur some of the area right around it. And what do you see with that, with almost the redevelopment?
Yeah, well, when we really looked at the property and we understood the difference, either spending $2 million or being able to use it for $1,000, we realized that the most important parts that we needed to check off the boxes, so to speak, we were able to check off those boxes by changing our our use of it. Number one, we really wanted to create some public parking because we have quite a number of really nice small businesses right there in the middle of the village. And parking is at a premium. And I know that the village committee, we talked about how can we make more parking. A lot of times people will say, oh, I would like to use the green, but there isn't a lot of parking. And so parking was really important to us because we felt that was important for the continued success and economic well-being of the stores that are all around there. So by keeping, by taking Parsons and kind of pivoting and changing, we realized we could do that. Another very important goal of ours was to provide access for a future welcome center from the Farmington Historical Society. The Farmington Historical Society did such an excellent job fundraising, and they have acquired a home that really can only be accessed from the Parsons lot. So that was another way that we could check off that box, which could really be an excellent asset to the community. And then the other part, another component that was also very important was the fact that a lot of people in those different meetings all expressed that they wanted some portion of the project to be open space and to create a gathering place to make sure that this became the major gateway into our historic village. And again, this new alternative allows for that. And when we started looking at it, we realized that there are other not little projects, but there are other projects right adjacent to this bigger project that we think can be spurred on by this public parking, can be spurred on. Chase Bank is going to be starting constructions very soon. The condos in the back, although they've been a little bit slow in selling, will be sold eventually. And little by little, that whole area, the condominium office complex in the rear, that has, 2 of those buildings have been sold, and there's going to be redevelopment. So one of the things that we think this could also check off as a box is creating more economic development without the town having to take a $2 million investment with the hope of finding an investor or a developer who's going to want to come in and do the project that we want him to do. And instead, we're checking off a lot of boxes for a very economical price, and we're still having a project that could really spur on all new economic development in and around that area.
Peter, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rose.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other questions from any other members of the council?
Actually, just a point of clarification, and I am very glad that we're going to be able to have some more parking in our village. But since we have the option to possibly do something down the road, that doesn't mean that any other developer would have that option, since it would be transferred to us for $1,000, correct? But that does give us the option to possibly do something should we find someone who wants to work with us. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, that's what I assumed. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to add, this was a tremendous win for the town of Farmington. This was a piece of property that we had been looking at since the state acquired it, and the purchase price of $2 million just seemed very steep. That's why we were looking into working with developers. Any development that we had even considered, if we had developers interested, would have cost money from the town of Farmington to actually have an outlay to support those developers because of the size of the property. So the fact that through our negotiations, and through the concept of open space, we can acquire this $2 million piece of property for $1,000 is just an incredible win. That, coupled with the $2 million in grants to put sidewalks from Farmington Avenue all the way up to Highland Park Market, is just a tremendous win for Farmington Center. And I think we should be very happy about that and proud about that. Ed, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, CJ. Just a couple comments. So first, I just want to thank again the ad hoc Farmington Village Center Committee for all their hard work getting to this point, the thoughtful process that they've gone through to make all of these recommendations and to really help us strengthen that part of town. And my other comment is, I think we do have a great group of people on the current Farmington Village Ad Hoc Committee. And I do agree with reaching out to those people to find out who is interested in staying on. And I think that's something that we should look at carefully and certainly consider that.
Just to clarify, Ed, it wouldn't be staying on because that committee has finished its charge. And what we tend to do is when a committee completes its charge, they are disbanded, but we'd certainly consider them for the new committee.
For the new committee, yep.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Kathy, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I really appreciate it. It was long, but it's been a long time since this whole process started, so rightfully so. Anything else you want to add, Kathy?
Just that, just at the next meeting, we're going to see an action item about these recommendations so we can formalize it.
Great. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to report of the town council chair and liaisons. The first is the chair. Just to let you know, we've been fairly busy. We're starting into the budget season. We had set our budget targets previously. So that's work ahead. That'll keep us all very busy. The snowstorm I just want to thank and congratulate last Sunday. The crews did a tremendous job in town of keeping the streets clean, salted. I think everyone ended up mostly being able to get to work on Monday on nice clean streets. So thank you for that. We've got a winter newsletter coming out, and also the vaccines have been starting to be administered throughout town. I believe today we just lowered the age to 65. So anyone who's now available to get your vaccines, jump in line and get them, and continue doing what we have been doing. Keep your distance 6 feet, wear your masks, and cover your mouths when you're coughing or sneezing, as well as washing your hands. So thank you. And that's it for the chair's report. Board of Education liaison.
Thank you, CJ. It's Chris Fagan. The board met on January 25th. The beginning of the meeting was spent similarly to our meeting tonight with our state delegation appearing before us, and hitting a lot of the same notes that they hit tonight. Making Derek provided a sort of a state of the state message in terms of the financial condition of the state being much better, in the black, no cuts to ECS funding, no teacher pension sharing. Kathy made some of the points that I try to reiterate with the committee tonight about, supporting, the mandates, not supporting the mandates with the associated costs or unfunded mandates, and increased open choice funding. The building committee provided an update to the Board of Education, which was the video that we had seen before. So everybody's familiar with that. Kathy gave her standard COVID update. No significant changes there. There's minor fluctuations here and there, but the learning model is staying in place with no significant changes. As I said, minor changes on a school by school basis, but nothing significant to report there. There was the Farmington Valley Health District's opinion to stay in the hybrid model, and things are going well. As part of the budget process, Lori Singer presented the special services budget, and see some increases at the elementary level. East Farms is moving forward with the construction process with regard to the cafeteria, and continuing review of the kindergarten spacing issues. And then just general statements on the budget impact, but that's pretty much the same story again. Mentioned made as to Excel and Continue Ed suffering some issues relative to funding, but that's due to low enrollment and having a financial impact on the budget. And then just generally the other themes are the same. I mean, transportation, we're seeing some benefits there. The staffing always remains an issue with teachers and subs. Some of the custodial issues moving around, but the financials remain the same. And then on this past Saturday, we did have the large presentation of the budget meeting on Saturday morning into the afternoon, whereby the Board of Ed approved without a follow-up meeting last night, but the budget at approximately just under 73 million, or 4.3% increase, is the tentatively approved budget, which will then be forthcoming to us in the near future. So that's where we are.
Great, thank you, Chris. Economic Development Commission.
Yep, Edward Generos. The EDC met on January 13th at 5:30 p.m. Rose discussed the Spread of Love Shop and Eat local program, which is really great. So this is a campaign that's designed to allow our Farmington and Unionville businesses the opportunity to show their love with deals and donations, and our community the opportunity to show our businesses their love and support by shopping and supporting them. It's really a win-win, and there's some really great gift ideas and promotions and experiences that are available. And I encourage everybody to go on the explorefarmington.com webpage, and all the details on all the deals that are available for the Spread the Love program is available on the updates page of the Explore Farmington website. And the next meeting for the EDC is scheduled for tomorrow, February 10th at 5:30 p.m. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Ed. Next is the Farmington Historic District Commission. Brian, would you like me to start with the terms?
Oh, sure, be my guest.
Okay. Brian had asked a question about the terms on the Farmington Historic District Commission, and I spoke to Paula Ray. I received a letter from her, an email responding, which when she was looking into the code and the charter of the Farmington Historic District Commission, she discovered the terms of the commission members have been done incorrectly over the years. She tried to trace them back. She went back to the 70s and couldn't determine which ones were incorrect. The code calls for the terms of commissioners to expire one each year. So what we currently have in 2019, the previous council actually named 5 commissioners, 3 alternates and 2 regular seated commissioners. So we have 5, 2 of the regulars that are expiring in 2014 and all of the alternates expiring in 2014. The likelihood is when it was created, the alternates would also have staggered years, but it's not specifically addressed. So that's something we can talk about on the council level. We also had 2 terms that were expiring in 2021. So instead of 1 each of 5 years, 1 year we had 2, another year we had 2, and a third year we had 1. So when Holly Holden's position was open, Paula took the opportunity to extend that position from 2021 to 2023. So then we would have expirations in 21, 22, 23, and 2 and 24. So we'd be starting to catch up. And her advice was when the 2 terms in 2024 come due, that they would be set to stagger. So you'd correct that 1 year. So we would actually then have all of the 5 regular members of the Historic District Commission in 5 years rather than the way it is right now. She also added this correction has been done to other boards and commissions in the past. They occurred when a vacancy term was incorrectly set for a full term instead of the years remaining on the term. And she's been correcting these types of minor errors since she's been responsible for the boards and commissions book starting in 2015. So that's the response. Any questions on that, Brian?
Yeah, actually, just I'm thinking that if there are going to be changes, coming up so we can correct what's been done in the past, would it be helpful if we had an agenda or a list of when we're going to be making certain changes and who's going to change so that we know how we're going to proceed moving forward in terms of what's changing to correct, these things as Paul has pointed out. So as we know, which
when I think when the clerk presents these to us and she generally tells us what the terms are when they're coming up, she could explain, like with the Holly Holden seat, it was set to expire in 2021. She put it in when we all voted on it that it would expire in 2023 and explain why. So I think that's appropriate.
Sure. So it would be nice to see that. And my other question is this something that we do as a town council? Is it something that the commission, the Historic District Commission itself does, or is it something that Paula does? I just wanted some clarification on that.
Yeah, in the past, this has been something the clerk, Paula being the current clerk, or whoever was taking care of the boards and commissions in the past would just correct any abnormalities in them. And that's, as the clerk, she was doing just that.
Okay, no, I just wanted to just ask that question because I didn't know.
Good question.
Right. And then, I obviously have some actual historic commission stuff that's been going on.
Yes.
And Ms. Porter's, there was an application for a temporary certificate of appropriateness to install transformers at 53 and 63 Main Street and 1 electrical master panel at 53 and 1 at 59 and 1 at 63 Main Street. There was no public comment in favor or in opposition to the application, and it was unanimously voted to approve the Ms. Porter's application for temporary certification appropriateness. The second item that was discussed was an application for a temporary certificate of appropriateness to install a generator and propane tank at 101 Main Street. The commission suggested that they come back when the location and size of the tank is finalized because that information was not available. There was no public comment in favor or in opposition to the application, and it was unanimously voted to continue the temporary certificate of appropriateness to install a generator until February 16th. The third item was an application for temporary certificate of appropriateness to install a 120-gallon horizontal propane tank screened with lattice fence at 34 Mountain Road. There was no public comment in favor or in opposition to the application. It was unanimously voted to approve the application for a temporary certificate of appropriateness to install the 120-gallon tank with lattice. And I did want to say that our next meeting is February 16th at 4 o'clock. And I wanted to thank everyone for allowing us to be transparent and hear letters of concern from people in the village. And I just wanted to reiterate, as was mentioned, that I'm disappointed that I was not, involved in some of those discussions that were made, leading to, the Historic District Committee as the liaison. I was not invited or involved in any of those discussions leading to the actions as outlined in the letter. And I appreciate you addressing, and you and I talked about that yesterday, and I appreciate you addressing those concerns. And I want to thank you for your comments. I really do appreciate that. So just as a point of clarification, since it was stated that the matter is closed, I was just wondering in what sense and what do we do here?
We as a council do nothing, Brian, as we generally do not in any of the boards, committees, and commissions. The duly elected chair of the Farmington Historic Commission, as stated by 3 different attorneys and 2 different law firms, is Evan Honeyman. The fact that the previous chair refused to recognize that does not change the fact. There was a proper election. It was stated as a proper election. Evan Honeyman is the chair. So all we do is let the historic district go along the way they've always been going along.
Okay, and that was, I guess that was decided by our attorneys?
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. Thank you, Brian.
And that is my report. I did mention that the February 16th at 4 o'clock is our next meeting. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Housing Authority, Gary.
Nothing to report on at this time.
Okay. Human Relations Commission.
Yes, Joe Caponifero. We have a meeting upcoming March 15th. It's going to have our local delegation presenting over there where we can ask questions pertaining to our commission priorities. And our needs assessment has been published on Explore Farmington, the Valley Press, and on the town website. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Moving on to the Library Board, Gary.
Gary Palumbo. Black History Month doesn't often get much better than Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, but Black performers, rioters, elected officials, lawyers, and soldiers have made their mark on Connecticut history. To introduce them, Farmington Library will hold a virtual program saluting the Black heroines of Connecticut history. To register, go onto the Farmington Library website, and it should be very interesting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Gary. The African-American heroines is African-American women who've had an impact on the state of Connecticut, and we appreciate the library joining in for their presentation for this month. Town Plan and Zoning Liaison.
We had a meeting yesterday, nothing new to report, but in future meetings coming up, the Metro Realty Group is still going to have another public hearing on their proposed development on Route 4.
Great, thank you, Joe. Unionville Historic.
Yes, Edward Gianaros. Unionville Historic District Commission met on February 4th. The commission continued their discussion and planning for an educational workshop to take place in March of this year. Sanford and Hawley will present at that workshop on various materials used for historic homes. They'll also go into a brief history of the company. And there'll also be a presentation on air conditioning in historic homes and how that's done properly. And I believe a notice is going to go out in one of Rose's weekly email blasts. I think Shannon Rutherford is going to work with Rose on that regarding communication out to the public in terms of the date and time and all the relevant information with that educational workshop. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 4th at 7 p.m.
Great, thanks, Ed. I hope the air conditioning in the historic buildings is better than what I used in my 1860 house, which was a block of ice and a fan. Moving on to the Unionville Village Improvement Association.
Edward Gianaros, nothing new to report.
Thank you. WPCA.
Joe Capitafaro, their meeting is tomorrow night at 7 p.m.
Great. Any other liaisons I have missed? Excellent. Okay, moving on to the report of the town manager. We get to hear more from Kathy.
So you have the report in front of you. The first one is a personnel update. And so we're pleased to announce that we hired a new town planner, Catherine Kramer. She is our new town planner and she started on January 20th, 2021. Ms. Kramer is an AICP as well as an AP in International Well Building Institute certified and has a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania in City and Regional Planning. Ms. Kramer comes to the town of Farmington after working at a New York City firm as an urban planner. Also, it should be noted that Ms. Kramer does come from Connecticut, and I think she grew up locally in this area. And so I'm very pleased to have her join our team. So it's Catherine Kramer. So when COVID is over, I'm sure you'll all be able to meet her. I mentioned it last time that the wastewater treatment plant operator year award, and that went to Mark. He was selected as superintendent of the year. So that was a really great award, and he's been with us for 5 years, and he was promoted to our superintendent in 2019. We are working on our vaccine rollout plan and registration, and in your packet, you can see that the social service department has been doing a vaccine rollout for our seniors. And also we've been trying to put as much information on our website, trying to help people. And just, I guess my message tonight is that any senior or really any person, now we're on over 65, that is having problems with the systems, to give us a call and that we could help them out and try to get everyone signed up in different ways. I know that the system has been somewhat difficult for some of the seniors, and so we are here to help and try to facilitate that. The health district is running clinics and we are keeping our website up to date, and we are doing quite a few of our seniors are getting vaccinated, which is great news. We do have our town council budget schedule, so that's in your packet. One of the things that I just wanted to mention or throw out there is the potential of going back to, for the budget, maybe the council being live. And I was thinking that potentially maybe either changing rooms or spreading us out in the council chambers, maybe setting up the room a little bit differently, that you wouldn't be on the top, that we'd maybe flip the room around and set up tables, and so we'd have more room. Think about it, something that, again, not having the public, but having the public call in, but having the budget meetings, us being live and having it Zoom to everyone would be something if the council, if the numbers keep on going, and I think we could spread everyone out, or we could move to the police station, which is a bigger room, and then we could spread out even more if people felt more comfortable with that. But I think if at all possible, it would be in some ways easier to have the budget meetings if the council at least and the staff were there in person. So again, I'm not really looking for an answer right now, but that was something that I've been thinking about. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, I think we'll look into that. We'll have to see how it might fit. Brian, I believe you're the only one of us that's got vaccine because of your job, so. Okay, move to approve the town manager's report.
CJ, we need to make a motion.
There you go.
Peter Master Batista, I make a motion to report, to accept the town manager's report.
Joe Capitafaro, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next, moving on to appointments. I do not believe we have any tonight. I will mention there are positions open on the Building Code Board of Appeals, the Green Efforts Commission, the Plainville Area Cable TV Advisory Council, and the Lower Farmington River and Salmon Brook Wild and Scenic Management Plan. We've been discussing, and this is will be ongoing, if this is something we can start putting on our website so we can let the public at large know there are positions open, and work through that as time goes, and then maybe open up to a larger group. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm definitely, thank you, CJ. I'm definitely in favor of increased transparency. And just one other recommendation I'd make is when we do have appointments, I think it'd be great for the public if we talked about some of the background of that person, why they want to be on that commission, or what qualifications they have. I think just any of that increased transparency that we can do is only going to benefit the public. Thank you.
All good. Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to old business. Seeing none. New business.
Agenda item N1. I make a motion to request the Town Planning and Zoning Commission review the Batterson Park Road Water Main Extension Project for a report under Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes.
Joe Capitafaro. Yep.
Oh, sorry, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Joe Capitafaro, second.
We have a motion and a second. Kathy.
The city of New Britain is extending a new water main on Batterson Park Road in Farmington within their service area. The new water main will improve water quality in the area and allow residents to connect if they wish. As you know, that usually we as a town are forwarding 8-24s to the TPZ, but because this project is in our town and the city of New Britain is doing it, we are the go-between, so we're forwarding this to the TPZ. We will not get a response back, but that New Britain will get a response back.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Oh, Brian, go ahead. Just got in there.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there any expense for the town to do this, or we're just looking at it?
No, we're not looking at it. It would be that the New Britain Water Company is going to be looking to the residents and the residents there that want to participate and become part of their water line and become then have New Britain Water. So they would work with the New Britain Water Company directly.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
And Brian, we don't get to decide who's in what water company. That's above our pay grade. So when someone's
It's all water under the bridge, right?
Oh, set you
You
up for
asked
that
for
one,
it.
yes, Brian. Sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next, Peter.
Agenda item N2, I make a motion to set a public hearing on March 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. on the town manager's fiscal year 2021-2022 recommended budget.
Joe Capitafaro, second.
So this is when the town manager, when I present the recommended budget, and then as I stated earlier, these would be your budget workshops afterwards.
Thank you. Any questions? Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next.
Agenda item N3, I make a motion to approve the following property tax refunds as listed below.
Joe Capitafaro, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. And before Peter makes the next motion, as is my practice, I will leave you with a quote. Since Valentine's Day is this Sunday, I will leave a quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. Love is the master key that opens the gates of happiness. Peter, item O.
Agenda item 01, I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters concerning pending litigation. Those in attendance will be the town council, town manager, and town attorney.
Peter, that's
Yeah.
scratch down. It's number 2.
Oh, we're going to go to 2?
If I could just make note, we're not going to be going in for litigation tonight, just for land acquisition. So this would be the only executive session for the evening.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. All right. Item 02, I make a motion for executive session to discuss matters concerning the sale or acquisition of real property. And members in attendance will be the town council and town manager.
Joe Captain second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passed unanimously. Just for the public, we are going into executive session. It is not open to the public. All we will be doing when we come back is adjourning. So for all intents and purposes to the public, the meeting is over. We thank you for your participation and have a great evening.